All right, DeMonte. Tough night for your Baltimore Ravens. And take us through it before we get to it.
So last night, my Baltimore Ravens, we coughed up another one. Lamar was running for his life. Derrick Henry with another costly fumble. Detroit came back on the next drive, converted on fourth, got a touchdown. So we did it for your team. We should do it for my team too. Should I be worried about my Ravens with how everything's going at the moment?
So I'm glad you listen. I'm glad you put it in that context. We did it for the Chiefs for being 0-2 and now 1-2. Should we do it for Baltimore? And it is a very interesting test of sports media today and who has and has not earned benefits of the doubt. Because I, silly me, Chiefs homer, lifelong Kansas Cityan, got a tattoo about the team. Silly me. I would have thought that a team that has been to 7 consecutive conference championship games, been to 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls, won 3 of the last 6 Super Bowls, and been to 3 straight, that if any team would have earned a benefit of the doubt for sputtering out of the gates, it would be the Chiefs. But I was wrong. It was a lot of talk about how systemically the team may be broken, about Patrick not being as good as he once was, Andy's play design not being as creative as it once was, and about how this team just isn't scary anymore. And, an that we'll get to in a minute, win over the New York Giants didn't exactly quiet that for most people. We'll get to my thoughts on it in a second. And the tackle that turned the tide. Trademark, as Kevin Wildes would say. I wonder how folks are going to discuss the Baltimore Ravens now that they are 1-2, with the one victory being an uninspiring one over the Cleveland Browns. Now that the Baltimore Ravens, who the benefit of doubt that they have earned is being to 0 consecutive Super Bowls, 0 in the last decade, 1 conference championship game appearance. If we are going to look at the Baltimore Ravens defense with the same critical eye that we have looked at the Kansas City Chiefs offense, a Baltimore Ravens defense that ultimately last year was not good enough, that up to this point this year has been downright awful. A Baltimore Ravens team that on top of that seems to situationally not be the most buttoned up in football, and a Baltimore Ravens team that all of a sudden, second best player, seems to have an odd fumbling problem. Now, I don't know if you agree with me or not on this, DeMonte. I do not think that game was lost on the Derrick Henry fumble. I think that that game was lost on the Ravens' entire inability to get us to stop Detroit from doing whatever they wanted on the ground.
Yeah, that's fair.
And the 2 95-plus yard drives of Detroit just running it down their throat, to me, was a flashing red light of concern. And it is, it's kind of perfect that, the Chiefs and the Ravens now play each other on Sunday, because one of these teams is going to be 0-3 with 3 losses to the 3 legitimate teams they faced. And the other team's going to be 2-2 and have steadied the ship. And we'll talk obviously more about that game on Thursday and Friday's show.
Do you think that it could? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
We'll talk about it more. I was going to say, what do you think with Kansas City winning and Baltimore coming off this loss, that it's a bad scenario for the Chiefs? Could be a potential trap game?
Well, no. I blame Wildes for this, not you. No, nobody seems to understand what trap game means anymore. Trap game You're talking about maybe a letdown spot or something. Trap game is so let's say the Chiefs had been 2-0 going into the Giants game with the Ravens coming up the following week. Then the Giants are a trap game. Trap game is team flying high, facing a bad opponent with a good opponent coming up. Trap game, perfect example. Trap game is what the Packers just dealt with.
Yeah, the Browns.
Looking great. Have the Cowboys, kind of not revenge, but a big Micah game coming up. And then the Browns beat them. That's a trap game. The Chiefs playing the Ravens, like, not a trap game. It is what you're talking about is the Ravens all of a sudden potentially more desperate coming off the loss. But desperation is, accounts for something. Whether or not this team is quite as good as everyone assigned them as being is something else. And so let's talk about the actual game itself. So the Ravens defense was disastrous start to finish. Now, they didn't have Nnamdi Madubuike, but I don't know when they're getting him back. They didn't have Kyle Van Noy, but I don't know when they're getting him back. And Roquan Smith was not good. Historically, he's been excellent. Last year was a little shaky. Last night, he was not good. Obviously, folks are going to focus on the Derrick Henry fumble. I want to talk about Lamar for a second. And again, I texted this to Greg Rosenthal this morning about alleged, because Greg said he didn't want to be lumped in with the, quote, Lamar haters. And I texted Greg. I was like, the Lamar haters group is just Bill Polian from a decade ago in a draft evaluation, and I guess me, because everyone else in the media is in pretty much lockstep that this guy is simply unimpeachably great and one of the greatest players we've ever seen. And while I do think he's one of the greatest players we've ever seen, I think last night he was not quite as good as the numbers suggest, and let me tell you why. Now, not just because I don't really care about the final 80 yards and touchdown when they were down 14 with less than 2 minutes left. That's not what I'm talking about. Even before that, like, he started the game 9 of 10. His passer rating was crazy. He was making some really good passes. There are two things last night that I feel are not one-offs that if I were a Raven fan would be concerning. One is Lamar's refusal to throw the ball away and his hesitation to just take off and run. And those two things combining to him being sacked 7 times is just a killer. Like, he was great when he threw the ball, but he needed to throw the ball a little more or a little quicker or take off and run. Those sacks were drive killers time and time again. So that's the kind of meat and potatoes. I think with it being that crazy and it being 7 sacks, that's something that'll get corrected pretty fast. Yes, I would think so. But it was, the concern there is it wasn't corrected during the game. Yeah. It was 5 sacks, when they were still in the game and still on that last drive before the drive when they punted with like 6 minutes left. He got sacked once there, and then another one he ran, but it was essentially a sack. Like, right, he gained like 2 yards, third and but forever. They stopped him. Yeah, exactly. And here's the other one, and I'm just curious if other people noticed it. Man, he seemed to be wound tight from the opening snap. He was pissed off the whole game. Yeah, he was tilted the entire time. I saw it. I don't know what it was. It was like very simple stuff in the beginning. So weird that the first drive of the game that they didn't score, I don't know which drive it was, but the first time they went 3 and out, his like body language and emotions are really seemed like something. He just seemed wound tight. Yeah. And that is we have seen that Lamar a handful of times before. It, unfortunately for him, more often than not, is in the playoffs, where like early in the game, you're like, oh, he is anxious about this spot. But they were coming off a win. Like that, I didn't really get it. Why? The last time they played Detroit, they annihilated them. He has a hilarious record in his career against NFC teams. I'm going to pull it up real quick because it now obvious. I think he was like 23-1. Oh. Say it again.
Okay, I thought at this point he has like 4 losses total from the NFC. It might be less than that, apparently.
I think it's less, bro. So Lamar. No, you were right. You nailed it. So going into last night, he was 24-4 against the NFC with 48 touchdowns, 9 picks, and like a 108 rating. I think maybe he had at some point won like 20 straight or something. Whatever it was, he had a ridiculous record against the NFC. They annihilated the Lions the last time they played him. They had just come off a win, and the offense had been great in both games. Or they scored 40 points in both games. It was just a weird spot for him to be wound tight immediately. And those things concern me, man. So here is the, I think, fair read, given everything I've said about the Chiefs being fine, about where the Ravens are, as they now both sit at 1-2. It is hard. Like either the Chiefs or the Ravens are going to be 1-3 Sunday night. It will still be so hard to find 7 AFC playoff teams without including both of the Chiefs and the Ravens. And here's why. The Bills are 3-0, they're excellent. The Chargers are 3-0, they're excellent. Okay? Here is the entire list of teams other than Bills and Chargers in the AFC that currently have a better record than the Ravens and Chiefs at 1-2. We're at 2 teams. The Colts, who are 3-0, who look excellent, but I think there is still a little bit of waiting for the bottom to fall out. And then there are only 3 other teams, and they all feel totally fraudulent.
Oh.
The Cincinnati Bengals. Well, the Cincinnati Bengals, who don't have their quarterback. The Steelers, who are not good, flatly not good, and I worry. Preview to Nick's picks. I cannot wait to be on the Vikings this weekend as they play a London or a Ireland game, and that defense going after Aaron Rodgers. And then the Jags, I have not been pleased with how the Jags have played through 3 weeks. That's it. Right. And I know it's the playoffs obviously don't start today. If the playoffs started today, the AFC would have a 1-2 playoff team. Like one of the 1-2 teams would make it. So I will not say that the Ravens at 1-2 or even at 1-3 should panic as far as making the playoffs. What I will say is one of the reasons I have this confidence about the Chiefs is for nearly a decade now, every single year, they play their best ball in the postseason. Home or road, no, they play their best ball in the postseason, particularly the AFC side of the bracket. Haven't obviously always played their best ball in the Super Bowl, but in the postseason they have, or in the AFC side of the bracket they have. The Ravens are the opposite. And I think that the defense last year looked hugely problematic and then turned it around at midseason. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that again. And
The
so
Lions
they are
also
still
a very potent. Like this is a good offensive. I don't want to call them offensive juggernaut, but damn near. Like
Yeah.
this is a pretty good team.
no.
They're gonna
Absolutely.
do some stuff to you. But like
I
obviously
agree.
you're one of the better teams. You got to be able to beat the good teams.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean,
Right. It's the Ravens are trying to win a Super Bowl.
yeah.
They're going to have to go through the Bills, Kansas City, the Chargers, just to get to whomever is in the other side of the bracket. And if you were to tell me right now, honestly, if you have an all-time legend at quarterback, like the Chiefs and the Ravens both do, what would you rather, if you're going to have one part of your team really be struggling early in the season, what would you rather it be? Me personally, I'd rather it be the side of the ball that my all-time legend can help correct. So like if you're Kansas City, the offense has not looked good, but Patrick is directly involved in that and has months to figure it out. If you're Baltimore, the defense has looked awful. Lamar's on the sidelines for that. And so that to me is legitimate reason for concern. All right, let's talk the Lions side real quick, Demaze.
Well, so yeah, they struggled in week 1 versus Green Bay, but they've been humming ever since. They are 5th in Super Bowl odds. Do you think that's too high, too low, or just right?
I don't mind it. I listen, I've been really impressed by how they've responded to that week 1 performance. And last week putting 50 on the Bears, and this week, I mean, they've scored what? 90 points in their last 2 games? After having 6 points going in late in week 1. Really impressive. And Dan Campbell's game management is excellent. That going for that 4th down was objectively the right call, and a call a lot of teams up 7 wouldn't have done. And he is doing a lot to push towards we'll be fine without Ben Johnson. So the Lions look really, really good.